What do lawyers look for when they get a crash video like this? I'm Chase Elleby. This is Joel Williams. We are two law partners here at Williams, Elleby, Howard, and Easter. And today we're going to talk to you about that video you just saw and what lawyers will look for in determining, I guess, how to analyze and who to represent and what sort of claims to bring in a wreck like that. So Joel, I'll let you start. Obviously, it's a bad wreck. What's the first thing you look for?
Well, I'm going to assume that with that question, I'm going to assume I represent the person that got hit, because if I'm representing the person that's in the truck that ran into another car, I'm probably hired by the insurance company, and that's not me. I'm not getting hired by the insurance company.
Well, right. Well, you bring up a good point, because that video, there's multiple people potentially, because we can't see inside the car, so we don't know who, passengers, drivers, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. There's multiple people that could potentially have a claim. So from your perspective, from the person who got hit, let's just assume that person's the driver, what do you do?
First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to send out open records requests to the police department, or the sheriff's department, whoever investigated the crash itself, to see what the officer found at the scene. I'm also going to request 911 calls, if any were made. I'm going to request dash cam, body cam videos, because a lot of times on those videos, you can hear what people are saying at the scene. You can hear what their physical complaints are. Sometimes you get some pretty damning admissions from the person who caused the wreck as to why the wreck happened. So anything that's available to me by open records to send to a public agency, I'm going to request that first. And because I don't want to reinvent the wheel. Like, if the police officers are already gathered information that's going to be helpful to my client's case, then I'm going to get that and then decide what the next step is going to be.
That's right. And so this video in particular, when you're looking at it, obviously it comes from another vehicle, right? A lot of cars out there have dash cam videos. A lot of cars, especially the newer cars, have cameras and sensors that are going to record things like that anyway. So it's, I think, kind of a PSA to know that if you have a newer vehicle that has a bunch of cameras and stuff around, you can upload and download that video.
Yeah.
But that doesn't always happen, right? You don't always have those types of videos. So another thing to do is, if it's at a busy intersection where there's other, say, restaurants, gas stations, or whatever, on the corner, or if there's traffic cameras, you can try to get video from there as well, by either calling up there, just letting them know who you are, what you're looking for, send what we call spoliation letters to tell these companies, whether it's a racetrack at the corner, hey, there was a wreck at this time at this corner. If you have any video, please hold on to it. There's also websites out there, especially in Georgia, that if it's at like a DOT camera, for instance, there's websites that will record that, so you can go and look and try to upload that information. So, right, so that's kind of the first steps you do if you're going to represent the person who was hit.
Yeah, and the other thing is this video, the only reason we have this video is because one of our paralegal's friends owns a Tesla and captured it and told us about it, and we're like, oh, cool, well, let's do a video over that.
Exactly.
But if we were hired by the person that got hit, we might not necessarily know
that's right,
that the driver of this Tesla had video footage. So in those situations, when you don't have the video footage, reaching out to those services that Chase talked about to see if there's any cameras that may have caught it may be vital, and it's very important.
Yeah, and when I look at that video too, we're talking about, of course, the person who was initially rear-ended, but there's potentially multiple claims, right? You see the second car that gets hit. The second car that gets hit will also have a claim against the work truck that rear-ended the initial car. And then you got to ask yourself, well, was there a passenger in the work truck? Because if you're a passenger in the work truck and the person who's driving causes the wreck, you're also going to have a claim. And in that situation, you might not only have a liability claim on the auto side, but you might also have a workers' comp claim if you're on the job and you're injured. So there's a lot of other factors at play. Then, of course, you've got property damage, right? You got property damage claims. What if you're a passenger in the vehicle that got rear-ended? Right? I mean, how many avenues of insurance do you have there?
Yeah, well, that's actually the next step, is identifying all of the different insurance companies that could come into play here, and seeing which insurance companies would pay who and pay them for what. So you're typically going to have bodily injury claims. I mean, it looked like a fairly significant wreck, so it's likely somebody may have been hurt. You're going to obviously have property damage claims. There's going to be different sections under insurance policies that are going to pay for those things. And then trying to advise our client, if we're representing the person in that car that was rear-ended first, Like, which insurance company do you use to pay for property damage? Which insurance companies may be liable to you for your bodily injuries? And is there med pay coverage or PIP coverage under your automobile policy that could cover some of those initial out-of-pocket medical bills? But if we had the benefit of a video like this, we would typically do this anytime, but especially if we have a video like this, there's certain things that we want to dig into as far as gathering evidence to prove why this happened. Because it's one thing if the guy's fiddling with the radio, or the gal, whoever was driving that work truck, if they're fiddling with the radio and they just happen to look down and boom, they made a mistake. There's nothing particularly egregious or extraordinary about it. They just did something that everybody's done at one point in their life and took their eye off the road for a second and then boom. But there was actually a few seconds that passed and that vehicle appeared to be speeding up when it ran into the car. So potentially there's some very important things you want to dig up. So if I'm in the lawsuit stage of the case, the first thing I'm going to ask for is the cell phone records. That's the first thing that comes to mind, because with our cell phones nowadays, you can call, you can text, you can email, you can play a game, you can listen to music, you can research the biography of Albert Einstein if you want to from your phone. You could be doing any of those things, but when you order those cell phone records, as long as you know who the carrier is and as long as you know what the number is and the name of the account holder, you can find out, was data being consumed, was a text being sent, was a phone call being made, all of these type things. So that's the first place I'm going to start, because I see that driver as a distracted driver. Right. The question is why. So is there other things you would look at to gather evidence? Yeah, for sure. Especially, like you said, obviously he was distracted. So if he was on the job, we'd want to get employment records, find out whether or not, he or she worked long hours before, right? Did he or she have prior infractions, a bad driving record, things like that, to see if potentially the company could be responsible for what we call respondent superior or negligent hiring, negligent retention, things like that. So if we're in the litigation stage, obviously finding out if he was working for anyone, send a request for documents from that employer, assuming they're not already a party to the lawsuit, just to find out that type of information. Yeah, so you'd want to find out about his prior driving history for a potential negligent hiring claim. Mm-hmm. You'd want to find out about his driving history during the time he was working there for potentially a negligent retention claim. But then also we'd want to dig into the employment history to find out if this is a commercial vehicle, mm-hmm. What kind of training this driver was given. Like, is there negligent training claims that could be brought against the employer if they didn't properly train this man or woman to drive that vehicle? Maybe they didn't know what they were doing. Right. Also, I would probably look into his or her activity in the prior 24 hours prior to this wreck. We don't know what time of day it was that this wreck happened. It was obviously during daylight hours, but what if the driver had been out bar hopping all night the night before and then just eased into work and got behind the wheel and was inebriated? There might be a claim for punitive damages or some kind of other claim that would make the damages go higher in any lawsuit that was filed. Also, if he was at a bar, there's potential what we call dram shop claims, where you could go after the bar if they overserved somebody, they knew they were going to be driving and all of that kind of stuff. It's at least something worth looking into, right, especially if there's very serious injuries. Yeah, that's exactly right. And yeah, in sort of that same vein, talking about getting the employment records and things like that, we want to know how many hours he'd worked, mm-hmm. right? If he or she rather is 48 hours on the job and gets sleepy, behind the wheel and causes the wreck, then again, that's going to kind of potentially go back on the employer as well. So that's kind of what we would look at if we're representing the driver. But let's just assume the vehicle that was initially hit also had a passenger. What makes their claim a little bit different? Yeah, so anytime you're a passenger in another vehicle, you analyze it slightly different, but also the same. So if you're looking at why this truck ran into the car, like, your claims are essentially against the same person, right? What happened is going to be the same across the board. Yeah, so you're trying to prove the same stuff. Now, when you're dealing with insurance companies and which insurance companies you can make claims with, it's a little bit different. So obviously, you can make a claim against the truck that hits you's insurance company, and then there's others that you can bring a claim against.
Yep, that's right. So if I'm a passenger in a vehicle and the person who's driving the car, let's say in that video we've seen, let's say Joel's the driver and I'm the passenger. Well, obviously Joel's not at fault, but his vehicle might have uninsured motorist coverage, which would cover me. I might have uninsured motorist coverage as a passenger, which would cover me as well. So there could be multiple layers of insurance. And passengers, depending on how much coverage there is, I typically see it if you're a passenger and you have your own vehicle and you're also riding in someone else's car, you're usually going to have more coverage available to you than if you were just the driver.
Which can be super important, especially if it's not a commercial vehicle.
Right.
It's likely to have enough insurance to cover both of your damages.
Right, and then we can talk for days about uninsured motorist coverage, especially in Georgia, and what may or may not cover you. We could go into the whole resident relative analysis, whether or not you live with aunts and uncles and grandparents.
Yeah, we got like 5 other videos talking about that.
Exactly right. So, but yeah, so it's a little bit different analysis as far as what you're trying to find as far as coverage is concerned for a passenger, but liability, investigating the wreck, and all that's going to be the same.
Yep, and it doesn't appear this way in the video we just watched. In this wreck, because that vehicle appeared to be speeding up, but sometimes there may be some indication that maybe a mechanical defect where the vehicle's not properly maintained. Maybe the brakes are worn out, maybe it's raining, there's something wrong with the windshield wipers, maybe the lights aren't working properly if it's a nighttime wreck, and those type things.
Right.
There's so many different things to look into, which really just underscores the importance of finding a lawyer that, if you're in a wreck like this, finding a lawyer who has the ability, the know-how, the time, the willingness to dig deep to find out exactly what's going on in the case, because it's sometimes, if you don't put that time into it as a lawyer, it's just that one piece of the puzzle that makes the difference in tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in recovery for your client. So
yeah.
Super important to be thorough, and as someone who may be in a wreck, super important to find a lawyer in your state that's going to be thorough, investigating the what, whens, hows, what insurance company, who's paying, who are they paying, all of those type things. It all plays into what your ultimate recovery is going to be at the end of the day. So anything else about this wreck?
No, I think that's it. I think we covered a lot of good topics. So.
All right, cool. Well, we hope this video has been helpful, somewhat entertaining. If so, give us a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, we will see you next week for more personal injury videos. As personal injury lawyers, we love what we do, and we're happy to share the experience we've gained in personal injury law. To help our family, friends, and YouTube subscribers, we've shared over 300 personal injury videos covering various injury topics. So if you'd like to gain more knowledge that may help protect yourself or a loved one when they're on the roads or out in public, check out our channel or view our playlist of shorts for quick personal injury tips.